Okay, welcome back to my kitchen. Today I'm going to be making simple cream scones, but I'm adding some almond extract to it, so it's got a nice almondy flavor to it, but still really simple. So what you're going to need, a bowl, pastry cutter, or a food processor, or a fork, or your fingers, something to cut in the butter. It's basically a biscuit recipe that is sweetened with sugar or scones instead. It's going to be really flaky. So we're going to need 2 cups of flour. Fraction for your kiddos here. How many of these do I need to get to 2 cups of flour if it's a half cup? I know you can't see my face, but I tried. Hello. I tried, but in order to see the bowl, it's got to be down here. So you get to see Captain Marvel instead. Okay, so flour and then your sugar. Just like with everything else, you do your dry ingredients first. There's just 3 tablespoons of sugar. Sorry if you can hear the kids in the background. I had to keep them occupied, so they're watching Aladdin. Okay, and then baking powder. 1 whole tablespoon of this. Tablespoon. And then some salt. 1/2 teaspoon. Okay. You're going to mix these together. Might as well just use your hands. You're going to be getting in there later anyway. And then you cut in your butter. This is 5 tablespoons of butter. I use organic, unsalted. You don't want to use salted butter when you're baking things. It makes it too salty. So if you use salted, you need to subtract a bit of the salt you're putting in. So here's this, cut in cubes. Put that in your butter. Cold is best. It should not be sitting out because that's what makes it flaky, is when it melts into it and it leaves spaces in between the dough. And then you cut it in. And this shouldn't take too long. If you use a food processor, it's like maybe 8 pulses of the food processor. I have a hard time rationalizing using a food processor when that's all I'm doing. Because then you pour it into a bowl and then you do everything else. It's a lot to clean. Alright, so clean off the tongs here and then do it again. Again, a fork is fine. Your hands are fine. Everything, as long as you're just cutting it in there. Your hands aren't the best simply because you melt the butter a bit, and that is not what you want. You want as unmelted as possible. Because, again, once it melts in the oven, it's those spaces in there that make it flaky. That goes for biscuits and pie crusts and everything. I do use a food processor for pie crust simply because I'm making the entire thing in there. So I don't need another bowl. Okay, so these pieces are getting too small for my pastry cutter. So I'm going to put that aside and then I'm going to get there. And you're just flattening out the butter so that it gets in there. And you want it to look like cornmeal, kind of sandy. But a couple of pea-sized chunks are fine too. It does not have to be uniform. Okay, that's looking pretty good. So see, it goes fast. It feels long, but it's not that bad. And again, some longer chunks are fine. Get that off of there. Okay, I'm going to try and show you that That is what it looks like. It's kind of like it's crumbly. It looks kind of, it's got larger chunks of butter in there. And it's sparkly from the sugar. Okay, now is the time when you add any kind of dry ingredients that you want to add. So dry fruit, sometimes I put cherries, the cranberries, you can put raisins. You can do chocolate chips, you can do all sorts of things. So, well, I'm not doing that today. Today I'm doing almond extract. So if you're adding any kind of liquid, you want to put it in with your cream. So it's about 1 cup of cream. So we've got butter and cream. I'm going to add about a half teaspoon of almond extract right into the mixture. And then you pour it in. Get as much out as possible. You can use a rubber spatula. Ooh, I can smell that almond extract. All right, let me get a spoon actually. Be right back. Thought I had everything. Thought I had everything and forgot the spatula. All right, just fold that in. Cut down and around. Cut down and around while you move your bowl. There we go. Now it's starting to have bigger chunks in it. It's still pretty dry, but it will come together. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you can flip it out on the table if you want, but that's a bigger mess than I'm willing to deal with. So I usually just do it in the bowl, and you just kind of squeeze it a few times. Okay, until it becomes cohesive. You do not need to knead it. You do not need to knead it until it is smooth. You just want it so it's not a dry, powdery mess. So it's going to be pretty flaky and not super wet. If it's super wet, add some flour. If it won't stick together, add a little bit more cream. Now, here is my trick for perfectly formed scones. Get yourself a non-stick cake pan. This is an old one that I use for this because it's a little beat up and it's fine. I don't usually bake with it anymore. I got brand new ones. So you take your dough, it looks about like this, and you flatten it as much as you can in your hands and make it as even as you can. And you put it in your pie tin, smush it around. Now, while I'm doing all of this, my oven is preheating to 450 degrees with the racks in the middle. And I have lined a cookie sheet with a silicone mat. If you have parchment paper, that works too. Foil in a pinch, but it'll brown the bottoms more than you want. You don't have to use anything if you don't have anything. I find it cooks better if you have something between the baked goods and the pan. It's just a more even bake, I have found in my travails. So now you've put it in there. It's all mashed up. It's as even as you can go. There it goes. There's my oven. It's ready. Okay, now I'm going to take my pan that I have the silicone mat on, and I'm going to take and I'm going to dump it. It's going to stick a bit. That's why you want a non-stick one. This is fun for kids to bake with. There we go. It's coming. I can feel it. Come on. There we go. All right. Again, it does not have to be perfect. Now you've got a circle. So you can use a bench cutter. You can use a knife. Whatever. You take it and you cut your wedges. If you're using a silicone mat like this, try not to press too hard. You can score it, and then you'll be out of a silicone mat. Mine are never even when I use a big bench thing, and that's okay. You just want squares, like this. And go. Spread them out so they will rise. They have baking powder in them. So they'll poof up a bit. So give them space. But they don't have to be like across catty corner. All right. There's going to be some smaller ones, some bigger ones, and that always happens that they're homemade, so what do you want? All right, and then these go into the oven. I'm going to reshape this a bit here. For about 12 minutes, 15 minutes, 12 to 15. And then you take them out, let them cool for just a minute. And about 10 minutes actually, because otherwise they just fall apart because they're still really hot. And then enjoy. So here are our unbaked scones.